The judge was already reaching for the gavel. He had heard enough. Open and shut case, clean timeline, clear motive, signed confession. Even the jury looked relieved it was almost over. The defendant stood alone at the table. No dramatic protests, no tears, just quiet acceptance. The judge adjusted his robe. Court will now proceed to— Your Honor. The voice didn't come from a lawyer, it came from behind him. The bailiff. The room shifted instantly. Because bailiffs don't interrupt judges. Ever. If you're into courtroom stories where one small question flips an entire verdict, subscribe now to the Unheard Witness and stay with me. Because sometimes justice hides in the smallest detail. The judge turned slowly, irritated. Yes? The bailiff swallowed once. Before sentencing, may I clarify something about the evidence log? The prosecutor frowned. This is highly irregular. The defense looked confused. The judge hesitated, then nodded. Make it quick. The bailiff stepped forward slightly, holding the evidence clipboard. His voice stayed steady. The signed confession entered as Exhibit 12. He paused. Who logged it into custody? The prosecutor answered immediately. Detective Ramirez. The bailiff checked the sheet again. Sir, the signature says otherwise. Silence. The prosecutor blinked. What do you mean? The bailiff turned the clipboard around. Entry time, 2:14 a.m. The officer logged, Sergeant Cole. The problem? Sergeant Cole had testified he left the station at midnight. The defense attorney straightened. Are we certain that's correct? The bailiff nodded. I double-check every entry before submission. The judge leaned forward now. Detective Ramirez? The detective shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I must have misspoken. Misspoken on the most critical piece of evidence. The signed confession. The entire case hinged on it. And the judge narrowed his eyes. Clarify? The detective cleared his throat. I wasn't physically present when it was logged. Then who was? The defense asked quietly. Pause. Sergeant Cole. The room tightened. Because Sergeant Cole swore under oath, he went home early. The prosecutor tried to regain control. This is a clerical issue. The confession stands. But the judge didn't move toward the gavel this time. He moved toward the file. Or bring me Exhibit 12. The bailiff handed it over carefully. The judge examined the document. Signature shaky. Time written in darker ink, like it had been filled later. The defense spoke calmly. When was the defendant questioned? 11:40 p.m., the detective answered. And the confession was logged at 2:14 a.m.? Yes. Where was it kept for nearly 3 hours? No answer. The silence lasted longer this time. The jury felt it. Because gaps matter. The judge looked up slowly. Oh, Sergeant Cole, approach. The sergeant walked stiffly to the stand. You testified you left at midnight. Yes, Your Honor. Yet you logged this confession at 2:14 a.m. The sergeant stared at the paper. His jaw tightened. I may have returned briefly. For what purpose? Pause. To assist. With what? No response. The prosecutor's confidence thinned. The defense pressed further. Was the defendant represented during questioning? Yes, the detective said quickly. The defense turned. Name the attorney present. The detective hesitated. Because there wasn't one. The confession form had a blank line under counsel present. Initialed later. Different pen. The judge noticed. The jury noticed. The bailiff remained still. But he wasn't finished. He spoke again, carefully. "There's something else, Your Honor." Every head turned. The security log shows the interrogation room camera was offline from 12:03 a.m. To 2:22 a.m. The prosecutor stood abruptly. Technical malfunction. Maybe, but convenient ones. Raise eyebrows. The defense asked softly, "Has that camera ever failed before?" The bailiff answered before the detective could. "I've worked here 11 years. It's never been down that long." The air shifted again. The judge leaned back slowly. Why was the camera offline? No one had a clean answer. The detective looked at the sergeant. The sergeant looked at the floor. And the defendant finally lifted his head. First time all morning, because hope was dangerous. The prosecutor attempted recovery. Even without video, the defendant signed voluntarily. The judge studied the paper again. The signature didn't match earlier documents. The defense requested comparison. Court clerk placed driver's license signature beside it. Not identical, close, but not identical. The judge asked the defendant directly, "Did you sign this confession?" The defendant swallowed. "No, Your Honor." The room held its breath. The prosecutor objected. "He admitted during transport." "Recorded?" the judge asked. "No recording, just officer notes." The bailiff shifted again. "There's one more detail, sir." The judge nodded. The holding cell log shows the defendant requested medical attention at 1:10 a.m. The defense turned sharply. For what reason? The bailiff read carefully. A complaint of chest pain and dizziness. The detective interrupted. He was exaggerating. "Was medical staff called?" the judge asked. "No." The jury's expressions changed, because exhaustion plus interrogation plus no counsel plus no camera equals pressure. The judge's voice cooled. Was the defendant alone in that room between midnight and 2? The sergeant answered reluctantly, "Yes." "With how many officers?" 2. The defense stood firm. "Your Honor, we move to suppress Exhibit 12. The prosecutor objected again, but weaker now. The judge didn't answer immediately. He stared at the document like it had betrayed him personally, because he had believed it. Everyone had. Clean case, simple narrative, robbery caught on camera, defendant identified nearby, confession sealed it. But without confession, the remaining evidence was circumstantial. Grainy footage, partial face, no direct physical link. The judge turned toward the jury. "You will disregard Exhibit 12, pending further review." Shock rippled across the room. The prosecutor's shoulders dropped slightly. The defense exhaled slowly. But the unraveling wasn't finished. The bailiff quietly placed another sheet on the bench. Vehicle impound log discrepancy. The judge looked confused. What discrepancy? The defendant's car was reported at the scene. Yes, the prosecutor said confidently. Yet impound records show it was towed from 3 blocks away. The courtroom froze again. 3 blocks away. At 11:05 p.m., 35 minutes before the robbery. The defense asked softly, how could his vehicle be parked away from the scene before the crime occurred? No clean explanation. The detective's voice cracked slightly. He may have walked? Possible, but the timeline collapsed under pressure. The robbery occurred at 11:40 p.m. Security footage showed a suspect fleeing immediately. If the defendant's car was already impounded, how did he leave? The jury exchanged long looks now. The judge removed his glasses. The simplest case of the month had become a procedural disaster. The prosecutor's earlier confidence evaporated. "Your Honor," he began carefully, "we request a brief recess." The judge shook his head. "No." His eyes settled on the defendant, then on the bailiff, then back on the evidence. This court cannot proceed on compromised testimony and questionable procedure." Silence swallowed the room. The judge spoke slowly. "Exhibit 12 is suppressed." The prosecutor didn't argue this time. The judge continued. "Given the integrity concerns raised, this case is dismissed without prejudice pending independent review." Gasps filled the courtroom. The defendant closed his eyes briefly, not in celebration, in disbelief. The judge placed the gavel down gently, not slammed. Just set down, because authority doesn't like admitting error. As officers escorted the defendant out, reporters rushed forward, cameras flashing, questions shouted. But one question mattered most, the one asked by the bailiff. Months later, an internal investigation confirmed coercive interrogation practices, unrecorded sessions, delayed logging, selective documentation. Sergeant Cole resigned quietly. The detective faced disciplinary review. Now the judge issued new courtroom protocol. No confession admitted without verified video. No evidence accepted without chain confirmation. Because one question saved an innocent man. A question no lawyer asked, no juror considered, no prosecutor anticipated. It came from someone who wasn't even supposed to speak. And that's the part nobody forgets. The judge thought the case was simple, until the bailiff asked one question. And sometimes, justice survives not because of power, but because someone notices what doesn't add up.